All right, I'm going to go ahead and end that poll, and we'll go ahead and switch back over for our presentation today. So again, good afternoon to our audience member and to everyone here. Welcome for today's webinar, the Effective Leadership Series Part 3, the Attuned Leader. Today's webinar is brought to you by our colleagues with the Innocent Justice Foundation and Supporting Heroes in Mental Health Foundational Training. Again, my name is William Moore with OJJDP's National Training and Technical Assistance Center. And before we get started, I wanted to go over a couple of brief announcements about the technology to keep in mind during today's web event. Please note that today's webinar is indeed being recorded. You can visit our INTAC YouTube page where you can find archived webinars on our page and any additional webinars on juvenile justice. If you'd like to receive any supporting materials related to any of the webinars we have posted on our YouTube page, please reach out to the OJJDP TTA Help Desk at this email, and we can get those related materials over to you. For those wishing to download a copy of the PowerPoints and other important documents related to today's webinar, you may do so by finding the handouts pod that's located directly next to the chat pod here. Simply click on the name of the file and the download button. Please note that our presenters will be taking questions throughout today's webinar. Please submit your questions in the chat box as they arise, and we will get to your questions during our Q&A portion of today's web event. Now, I'd like to help or assist with some attendance for today and get a good idea of how many folks are joining us. So if you're joining in a group, meaning you are joining with more than one person, please go to the chat and indicate the number of additional people that are in the room with you today. This will help us get a good sense of how many people are joining us today. So for example, if it's me and another person in the room with me today, I would put +1 in the chat to indicate that I have one additional person with me. So please go to the chat and type in the total number of additional people in the room with you today. If you're viewing by yourself or alone, there's no need to type anything into the chat at this time, only if you're viewing with an additional person. For those who are viewing with additional individuals, please note this. Only people who are signed into the virtual room will receive a certificate of attendance. If you'd like to receive a certificate for those additional people that are joining you today, please be sure to download the group validation form and complete it and send it to OJJDP TTA at usdoj.gov, and those additional folks that are joining you today will receive their certificate of attendance for today's webinar. Please take a quick moment to review the agenda for today's webinar. And finally, I would like to turn it over to our moderator, Gabriella, for today's web event. Gabby, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, William. Welcome to part 3 of our Effective Leadership series. This one is called Wellness Strategies for Effective Leaders. If you are at all unable to attend part 1 and part 2 of the series and are interested in watching them on recorded form, you can go to INTAC's webpage and also to our shiftwellness.org website, and you'll see that on your screen a little bit later with our contact. As Will said, my name is Gabriella Magalit. I'm so sorry that I'm not on camera, but Adobe and my computer just don't get along. And I'm the program manager for the SHIFT program here at the Innocent Justice Foundation. We were founded back in 2009 after continued requests from Internet Crimes Against Children commanders who found that many of their people were unfortunately leaving their jobs due to the extreme amount of stress and vicarious trauma that they face while they do this work day in and day out. So we were tasked to develop this program to help them mitigate the stress and the trauma and normalize them asking for help during these really difficult times. Now, during normal operations, which I know all of us hate saying at this point, we travel the country, so we go state to state, and we offer this in-person training to ICAC teams and their affiliates who work these cases. So hopefully we will be back on the road soon, but in the meantime, we, as everyone else, have gone virtual, and so we try to offer these trainings on any platform like conferences that are going on online and our much beloved Zoom to everyone. So please do reach out to me if you have any questions regarding the program at all, or if you're in need of a training, we will definitely try to help you out. And again, our contacts will be at the end of this. Now, I will turn it over to our most amazing trainers. They're my absolute rock stars, so it's such a pleasure to be here with them for the first time, by the way, so don't pay attention to me. Kara Bruska, she is the embedded mental health provider for the New Mexico ICAC team, and Anthony Mage, who is the ICAC commander for the New Mexico team. So take it away.
All right, so my name is Kara Bruska. Like Gabby said, I'm the embedded mental health provider for Anthony's ICAC and our affiliates. And as such, I am there as a support for the ICAC. I do trainings with them. I reach out to them on a regular basis. If they need anything, they call me. And fortunately for our team, everything that they do, everything that we do together is confidential, and Anthony has no idea who I'm talking to or what we're talking about. So that's one of the things that I do. And I'm also the clinical director of an intensive street outreach here in Albuquerque, working with people with extreme mental illness and they're experiencing homelessness. So between the two of those jobs, I get my fill of mental health work in different arenas. And so I have, it's a great balance for me. Ever since I can remember, I was a person who loved to give people ideas and tips for wellness. So my friends tease me I would stand on the street corners and do that for free. Thankfully, Anthony pays me, so I don't have to do that for free. But it's something that's just, I'm always thinking about that, always trying to learn new things to be helpful to others, because I find there's great value in that. And hopefully today you'll be able to take away some ideas that we talk about for you all. So Anthony, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. Again, we would love to see you in person for so many different reasons, but this is definitely a great way to get the message out. Just a little bit about my background. As you can see on the, there's a bio on me there. I've been in law enforcement over 32 years. I actually retired from the Albuquerque Police Department here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, about 12 years ago, and I started the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And shortly after starting the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, I started to see a burnout among my teams. I have 89 affiliates throughout the state of New Mexico, and I would invest time, money, a considerable portion of my grant to train these folks, and within about 18 months, I started seeing burnout, asking to actually leave the team. And what I was seeing is vicarious trauma, and how it was affecting them and their families and everyone around them. And I started to think back when I was at APD. I worked in homicide and sex crimes, and I would see the same thing, but we really didn't put a label to that. We thought, well, it's a stress, and we would debrief with our department therapist and after a homicide, and then that was it. So I was starting to see that again on the ICAC side, and something I'm like, I asked myself, what am I going to do different this time that I wasn't able to do for my teams when I worked at the Albuquerque Police Department? So I found out about the SHIFT program, and I was in San Diego at at another conference actually, and they did a workshop. And it was actually right around 2009. So they were talking about it, this program they're thinking of starting to help law enforcement and service providers and anyone that works with victims. And I thought, well, that's a great idea. I mean, that's the way we can help. So I got involved back then along with other commanders. There's 61 commanders throughout the country. I'm one of 61. And several of us got involved in developing the curriculum. And that's where SHIFT came about. And I implemented that in my state. And that burnout, those folks that were just leaving, I saw that go away. Just definitely some successes from that. Now, there was definitely some learning curves, and we've been sharing that with you in this series. I got a chance to meet Carol at the university, and I actually sat in one of her classes, and I've heard her speak, and I thought, well, this girl, she's perfect for my team. So I asked Carol to join the team, and we have had some amazing successes since she's been on. And I'm telling you, I went from this huge burnout where people want to leave and do something different to people want to come. And I mean, whenever time I have a position open, I have a line of folks at the door that want to join the team. And I think it's because of the success of our program, which we'll be talking about today, and then the support they get from Carol and myself. So we're glad you're here, and we're excited to share this with you. So again, this is the SHIFT program, Supporting Heroes in Mental Health Foundation Training. And again, this is the Effective Leadership Series, Part 3. And again, the SHIFT program started, as Gabby mentioned, in 2009. And it's been developing over the years. We always add something new and something exciting. So it's always changing, but the message is still there, and you're going to definitely get the great message today. As I mentioned, it's funded by OJJDP through a grant. Same folks that fund my ICAC grant, and if any of you are with ICAC, you'll know what I'm talking about. We get our funding through OJJDP, and we're very excited that we get the support we do from DOJ and OJJDP to be able to bring a wellness program to our teams. So they've recognized that it is an important part of our mission.
So this leadership series that we're doing today, the webinar series was created to address wellness strategies of those in leadership roles to help law enforcement, prosecutors, and other investigative personnel to manage stress from the difficult work in combating child sexual exploitation. The series will walk those in management positions through the necessary wellness steps needed to create an effective team. There will be a focus on mitigating challenges faced by Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force members. So a strong leader recognizes that being in tune with themselves and with the mental wellness of their team is crucial for individual accountability and optimal team function. Self-compassion is an important part of the wellness and an effective tool for enhancing performance. Self-compassion entails being intentional about caring for one's well-being and focusing on growth when there are challenges. Once an established wellness plan is in place, the next step is working with the team so they can be aware of their own needs with respect to mental health wellness. An effective supervisor understands the importance of connection as a way to lead others and sees the benefit in building strong, trusting relationships where others willingly follow. So this is part 3 of our series, as we said. So if you are in ICAC leadership, then please ask if there's any questions related to building your own team. Let us know. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started. So the objectives that we're going to cover today are exploring how to become an effective ICAC leader. Now, what we're asking of you now is to not only be effective in your job duties, but now we're asking you to be effective with your team, to support your team to increase the likelihood that they'll want to stick around. We're going to talk about the importance of wellness for success while in leadership roles, because over the years we have seen that if you have success in your own wellness and you can share that with your team, then your team will be more successful overall. We're going to learn about the importance of self-compassion for success, and lastly, understand the steps involved in creating an effective ICAC team.
Okay, great. So these SHIFT classes I mentioned earlier are designed to support ICAC teams and their affiliates chronologically exposed to high caustic materials during the course of their investigation, but that also comes in coming in contact with those victims as well. However, I'd like you to think about this. This may sound like it's geared towards ICAC, but again, coming from a law enforcement background, working in homicide, sex crimes, domestic violence, we're exposed to those types of victims, and many times we take that home with us, and it affects our lives. So today's training is going to help you in all those areas. So it's not just geared towards ICAC and being exposed to the child sexual abuse materials. Something to think about today, this is definitely a no stigma zone, and what does that mean? We're putting an end to stigma. Being a cop for as long as I've been, 32 years, I never thought 15 years ago I'd ask for help. I never thought that would be the thing that I do. I mean, we would just like suck it up and get back out there because, again, we're cops, and it was a paramilitary approach. You know, it's just we had to just get the job done. There's no stigma. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out. And that being said, during this presentation today, if there's anything that bothers you or affects you, you can always log off, of course, but we're here for you to support you. And as we've mentioned in the audience questions and the chat box, feel free to ask questions if there's something we can answer for you. And then at the end of this presentation, you'll have our contact information. And if there's something you'd like to just talk to us about individually, feel free to give us a call. We've been through it. We understand. And again, there's no stigma. Okay.
So what is self-care? Self-care is any activity that we do to increase our feelings of well-being and decrease our feeling of stress. It's pretty self-explanatory. So what the activities that we do, whether that's going out and riding a bike, whether that's chatting with some friends, whether that's having a Zoom game night with family, all of the activities that we do to increase our feelings of well-being and decrease our feelings of stress.
So, of course, self-care allows you to keep doing work, helps you be in a role model for your ICAC teams, and allows you to be more present at home. We found that 67% of the leaders and managers think that level of stress they experience at work is manageable. The other third was unsure or overwhelmed. A similar percentage said that they struggle to maintain work-life balance. Just half of the leaders and managers feel they have enough time to do quality work, and only 48% feel that they can detach from work. These results suggest that anywhere from a third to half of the leaders and managers are struggling to cope with the challenges of their jobs. That happens to all of us as a leader, but understanding that and taking care of yourself makes you more of an effective leader. So self-care keeps your energy levels up, it allows you to gain perspective, and it helps you be calm and collect. If a leader experiences stress, the neurotransmitters or hormones are released, and the leader may experience a short period of increased focus and reaction time. And we've all felt that. I mean, it's just the reaction time, you feel the stress, and it's hard for you to respond. But even if that stress exists for a long enough period of time, there will be a negative consequences. Characteristics of these negative behaviors include a lack of listening, over-analysis, failure to make decisions, an erratic, fearful, or angry emotional decision. You ever felt that way where someone's asking you a question and you're like, you want to lash out at them? When we're well rested and feeling good, it's easy to tackle the hard stuff. But when you're taking care of yourself, you can see things more clearly. When we have good self-care practices, we can be more predictable, resilient in your role as an ICAC leader.
So what are the things that you can do? Well, one of the things that you can do is really become self-aware. And what do we mean by becoming self-aware? It means paying attention to yourself. So pay attention to what your body is telling you. This means if you're noticing at the end of the day you have a headache, think about what might have caused that headache today. Did I have a headache when I woke up? Was it after I had that call with that person that really stressed me out? What was the cause of that headache? So, or what was the cause of the tension in my neck? Or what was the cause of the tension in my shoulders? So pay attention to what your body is telling you. Do a body scan throughout the day just to check in and say, okay, my body's feeling pretty good. Or wow, my legs are feeling really restless. Or maybe my stomach is feeling a little bit upset. The more you can pay attention to that, the more you can jump on those issues right from the beginning. And then pay attention to your responses to others. Like Anthony said, if you are feeling less calm, less relaxed, not taking care of yourself, your responses to others might be more short or negative. You might find that you're snapping at people. Maybe you're fine at work, but then you go home and you snap at your family. Or maybe you find that you're short-tempered with the others that you're working with. But pay attention to that and then think back. Is this something unusual for me? Am I always kind of snapping at people? So what you need to look at what is different from what's normal for you. And then pay attention to others' responses to you. So do you feel like people are walking on eggshells around you when they used to be calm and joke with you and fool around with you? Or are they now, they avoid you? Maybe do they just give you short answers for everything? Are they hesitant to interact at all? All of those things are ways to become self-aware. And this information is going to help you know how to take care of yourself, how your responses are impacting others, and how others' responses are impacting you as well. So pay attention to the stressors. What causes you stress? I know Anthony talks about some research that's done around people, the worst day of the week for people is Sunday night. And that's Sunday night because oftentimes on Monday morning we're back to work again, and just the thought of going back to work can cause stress for people. So what causes your stress? In this point, in this day and age right now, there's multiple stressors. There was a recent research study done by the APA where they're saying that the stressors that are going on right now relate to COVID. They relate to parents feeling stressed about their children and what's going to be the consequence of their children not being in school. There's stress about the economy. There's stress about social injustice. There's stress about not feeling heard. All of those things combined are causing a lot of stress for people. So think about what's causing your stress right now. Is it work-related? How are things going for you at work? Are they the same as they were before COVID or very different? And when do you feel this stress? Is this stress something that you feel only in the evenings? Is this stress that you feel during the daytime? And how can you decrease that stress?
Okay, so we need to set our boundaries. So one of the things is saying no when appropriate. You know, I've always been that person, and I think it's part of my DNA that I always say yes. And I was known for that when I was at APD, and now I'm known for it at the AG's office, that if people call and they're getting the runaround through, you know, the government bureaucracy, and they just switch from over and over again, and they end up with me, I'm going to still try to solve a problem if it has nothing to do with what I investigate. And I find myself doing that. It's important we set our boundaries, and when it's time to say no. Now, when I say no, say no when it's appropriate, but of course, you know, if someone, I've had people call me during this week alone and ask for help dealing with a domestic violence issue. I don't deal with domestic violence. So I was able at that time, instead of, I gave them a little bit of a direction, and then I pointed them in the right direction, and then went as far as contacted the person so they could talk to them. But find that and be able to delegate some of these tasks when possible. Again, with that example alone, I did say, no, I'm not going to completely solve this problem, but I was able to delegate to someone else. And then you should have those realistic expectations. You know, by setting your boundaries and what you can do. Sometimes it's so easy to burn the candle at both ends. And sometimes we find ourselves working 12, 14 hours a day because we want to get the job done. We want to continue doing it. And we don't set those realistic expectations where we just can't get it all done in one day. And that's why it's important to rely on other people as well and know that you can rely on them to delegate that and help you with your mission.
So replenishing yourself. Go ahead, Anthony.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I was just going to say, you know, do a conversation with yourself. What do I do to bring myself happiness? For me personally, when I think about what I do to bring myself happiness, I think about the spending time with people that I care about. And what we know about that is the more you can spend time with people that you care about, the more you're going to feel supported. It's going to give you a little boost of the hormone oxytocin, which is going to make you want to reach out to others, which is going to make you want to connect, and it's going to make you feel better. And taking time just to breathe. So what we know is that if you are taking time to breathe, getting that oxygen into your brain, into your body, you're going to be feeling better. So the fact of the matter is, if you practice this throughout the day, it will become your habit. So if every morning you just sit and take 10 deep breaths in, then you're going to be able to get the oxygen in your brain. You're going to be able to settle your system. You're going to be able to drop your blood pressure and your heart rate, and then do that again at lunch, and then do that again before you go to bed. So doing that multiple times a day is going to just make you feel better. It's going to get that cleaning oxygen into your body and brain, and it's going to be able to help you do a quick reset. Anthony, did you want to talk about exercise?
Yeah. So definitely getting the exercise, and that doesn't mean, especially with the current environment that we're all in with the pandemic, it may be difficult to make it to the gym, but just taking time away and stepping away from the computer, stepping away from that daily routine that you have and exercise, and it could be every 2 hours, just getting up for 10, 15 minutes and doing some type of exercise. Now, something that I practice doing now, and I've actually got it down to 1 hour. Every hour, I get up and I take my break, and we're working remotely, and I'll do 20 push-ups, and then I'll do some mountain climbers, and that helps the blood moving again, because studies show that exercise releases that cortisol, and that we need that, and it helps me with thinking, and I can re-engage. And just doing something simple like that, or going for a walk. I mean, and just simple things like that. Not necessarily going to the gym and being, and again, with the exposure now, but you can come up with other things, some simple things to exercise.
And with respect to sleep, that's one of my favorite things to talk about. I love to talk about sleep hygiene. So when I'm talking about sleep hygiene, what I mean is making sure that you are doing everything possible to get the sleep that you need. So that means when you're getting ready for bed, you don't want to be looking at your computer screen or your phone screen or your Kindle screen or your TV screen. All of those can be stimulating to your brain, which is not what you want to do. You want to make sure that you have a piece of paper and a pencil by your bed, so that before you go to bed, you can write down all of your worries so that you don't have to carry those into your sleep. And then if you wake up in the middle of the night and you think of something, write those down then. You don't want to go to bed with a to-do list that's floating around in your head and it's going to wake you up and disturb your sleep. It's best if you can sleep in a room that's very dark. It's best if you can sleep in a room that's a little bit on the cool side, because if you're feeling overheated, it's going to be harder for you to get a deep sleep. Have a nice glass of water by your bed, so if you wake up and you're thirsty, it's right there. You don't have to get out of bed. Try to remember that you don't want to do a lot of activities other than sleep and sex in your bedroom, so that your brain is trained that your bedroom is just for sleep and sex. If you're doing work in your bedroom, if you're playing board games with your kids, if you're answering work emails, doing whatever else you might be doing, your brain is going to think and be prepared and learn and trained, oh yeah, when I go in this room, these are the plethora of things that I do. So you want to make sure that your brain knows that there's only a few things that you do there, so that when you get into that space, your brain is prepared. If you are having problems sleeping, there are some wonderful apps that you can use. There's music apps, there's nature sound apps, there's also some meditation apps or some apps that can walk you through some sleep messages, some sleep narratives that kind of help you drift off to sleep. Personally, when I'm having a rough time sleeping, what I'll do is I'll put on some nature sounds, some ocean sounds, because that just is very comforting to me and it helps me sleep. So whatever you can do to increase your sleep is so important, because when you can increase your sleep, you're going to feel better in the next day. So you want to try to go to bed at the same time every day. You want to try to wake up. I know that that's very high expectation for people to be able to commit to, but if you can just try to change one thing in your sleep hygiene today and then try to see if you have an impact in that, then it might be worth it for you.
And that's a really good point, Carol. With the one of the things that I started doing was sleep, and now we're working remotely. I actually set up my work area near a window, so I'm getting plenty of sunlight during the daytime. But that's important for your sleep patterns too, because you're setting your clock. So we can release that melatonin at the end of the night when you're ready to go to bed at night, because your body knows now it's nighttime, it's time to shut everything off. And as Carol mentioned, having a device on that gives that light does confuse your mind on, is it daytime or is it nighttime? So it's something that I've started to practice. What I have noticed, working remotely, that I'm actually sleeping better because with the office that we have set up, I don't have a window in my office. So the only time I'm going to actually get sunlight is if I walk out of my office and go for a walk, which I practice, which I would do every hour. But I've noticed on those days where I didn't get that extra time that I needed, I didn't sleep as well that night. And also, I wanted to touch on something dealing with this slide also. It's something I was thinking about is that think about the stuff, why you got into this work. And again, not just ICAC, the work you're in, what you work, and why do you do this? I mean, why are you in this job? Why are you working? And think about the successes that you have. We'll talk more about that a little later, but start thinking about that and why you're doing this and what brought you to this work. And then remember that used to. You have that used to list that everyone has, right? I used to do this, I used to do that, but now I'm so busy, I don't have time to do that anymore. It's important we think about that. So what did I used to do, and what can I go back and do? So making that part of your everyday life and making that a hobby and going back and doing that. And I can't say it enough, it should be not work-related either, because I find myself, my hobby will be, well, I'll create a PowerPoint for another presentation I'm going to do, but that's still work-related. So go back and think about what's the used to. What did I used to do? Did I used to go skiing? Did I used to go to the beach? What else did I used to do? And why am I not doing it? And I need to go back and do that again. So it's important we do things like that.
And that's a great point, Anthony. I think that for me, my used to that I did when I was a child, that I started doing again about a year ago, that was ballet. And I used to do ballet, and it just got put to the side because I was growing up and going to school and involved in all sorts of other things. And I've just started back to it within the last year or so. And oh my goodness, am I glad I did. It's that same joy that I had then, and the sense of focus and just being able to be in touch with my body and get out and do something just for me. It's been a wonderful thing. So if there's something that you did, maybe it was fishing, maybe it was maybe it was flying remote control airplanes. Maybe it was doing something else. It doesn't have to be a quote-unquote grown-up kind of thing to do. Maybe it was coloring that you enjoyed. Maybe you used to write stories or create songs or play music. Any of those uses that you can incorporate again can be very beneficial, and you'll be surprised how much, once you get started into them again, how enjoyable they can be. So you want to try, if possible, to spend time outside. The reason for this is because when you are outside, your body and brain can be positively impacted by so many things. So what we notice is when we are stressed or when we are experiencing a very stressful or traumatic situation, our senses are the ones that are typically negatively impacted, and those are the ones that when something gets triggered, it's triggered by our senses. So if we can positively trigger as many senses as possible, that's going to be beneficial. If you are eating lunch outside, then you're going to be triggering your sense of sight by looking around you and seeing the beauty outside. You're going to be triggering your sense of taste by eating your delicious lunch, but your sense of hearing by listening to the birds or whatever else might be outside. You're going to be it's going to be a very relaxing potential for relaxing time where you can just regroup, enjoy your lunch. There's something that's called mindful eating, which you could certainly try. And mindful eating is putting all of your focus on what's in front of you and how it tastes and how it feels in your mouth. And so maybe if I was eating a sandwich, I could smell the peanut butter in my sandwich, and I could taste the softness of the bread and the crunchiness of the peanut butter, and the warmth of the sandwich. And every step of the way, I can really savor my sandwich. It's a way to slow yourself down when you're eating. It's a way to really enjoy what you're eating, because oftentimes we just kind of gobble up our food and don't even realize that we've eaten it by the time we've finished. But just slowing things down to a very slow pace, which is going to get you back to where you need to be. Going for a walk with family or friends, this is crucial for so many reasons as well. So being out in nature is fabulous because you are going to be able to, again, be positively impacted by that. And then being with friends, again, is so crucial for your own benefit. It's going to increase the support that you feel from others. It's going to make you feel like you're not alone. It's going to make you have the understanding that there's other people that have similar thoughts and likenesses that you have. So getting out there for a walk. Planning a camping trip or a beach weekend. We know right now there's not too many things with respect to vacation that we can plan. But if you have the opportunity to plan that, do. There's research that shows if you are planning a vacation and you're thinking about it, you can begin to get the benefits of that vacation 6 weeks before you actually go. And this happens because in your brain, you're imagining what you're doing. You're imagining maybe going to the beach. You're imagining what that experience is going to be like. So what's the sand going to feel like? What are the foods I'm going to eat? How is the ocean going to feel? Or how is the ocean going to smell? All of those things that you're anticipating, the hormones that you will be producing when you're actually doing those events is going to be produced at that point. So you're already going to be getting a little boost of oxytocin. Some of the excitement of that vacation is already going to come into play. So being able to do that is going to be really great. And maybe you can't plan a vacation for sometime this year, but what about next year? Start maybe thinking about, I couldn't go on vacation, so I've been able to save a little bit of vacation money. So let's plan something big. What's your dream vacation or your bucket list vacation? And how can you start planning towards that right away? So another thing to keep in mind is being grateful. We know that if we have our focus of attention only on ourselves, then what's going to happen is we're just going to, if we're having a bad day and all our focus is on ourselves, then it's going to be a bad day. If I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is I step out of bed and stub my toe, then I'm going to be setting myself up to look for things negative that have happened, and then I'm going to be seeing negative things that happen. But if I can write down the things I'm grateful for, then that's where my brain is going to go. So there was some positive psychology did a research on 3 good things, and this is something I highly recommend to everybody, and I really try to do this. It's a practice where you look for 3 good things that happened every day. So it could be maybe the 3 good things. I was trying to get on the freeway and somebody let me in, or I got the first parking space at the grocery store, or maybe I'm just grateful that I didn't get COVID today. Maybe it's, everything at work went the way I wanted. But having that gratitude journal and keeping track of those things is good because it puts your focus on the positive. And also then when you've had a bad day, you can look back on that journal and say, oh yeah, these are some good things. Now for me, during COVID, I've kind of upped that a little bit because writing good things in a journal wasn't even cutting it enough. So what I've tried to do as well is I've tried to perform anonymous acts of kindness every day. I try to do 3 things. And some of them are not necessarily anonymous to anybody but myself and the person I'm doing it with. So maybe I'm walking the dog in the morning and I see someone's roses and I think how beautiful they are, and that person's outside. I'm going to tell them, you have some really beautiful roses here. I always admire your yard. So it's being in the present moment and trying to support others, because then it's going to increase the quality of their day. Maybe that's the only positive thing they've heard today. If there's something that is going to, give them that little boost, and then in turn will then give that to somebody else. So I try to now think of the 3 good things I'm grateful for every day, and then 3 acts of kindness that I can do, whether they're anonymous or not. So can I open the door for somebody? Can I offer to carry a box for somebody? Can I compliment somebody on something they've done? What are the things that I can do to increase the quality of somebody else's life? Because what we know is that if we are outside of our own life and trying to make someone better, that's going to help us. And then share a compliment with someone. So maybe that's your coworker did a really good job on a case, or your child did a really good job on a paper, or your spouse made a fabulous meal. Compliment them. If you're at work and you see somebody did a great job, send that compliment to the person, but then CC the rest of the team so everybody knows that this person did a really good job. If your spouse made a really good meal, compliment them in front of your children or in front of the other family members so that they will know that you actually appreciate them and want everyone to know this. If your child did a good job on a school paper or on something else at home, share it with their grandparents and the rest of your family, because that's going to help build those people around you at the same time that you're making yourself feel better. And it's all about taking the emphasis off of ourselves and putting it on someone else, because if we're just thinking about our lives all the time, we can begin to wallow in self-pity. But if we can actually get out there and start thinking about other people, then we can increase our happiness.
And that's some really good points, Carol. As a leader, that's something that I practice. I always say thank you when someone sends me something. It's always thank you, cool, good job, whatever it may be, but always providing that response, because I know and I've had managers in my life where I've sent them something and never heard back from them, and it feels empty. And people like to hear a compliment. People like to hear a thank you. People like to hear that. We do. How that makes you feel. So just something as simple as that. You know, I receive probably 40 text messages every hour, and every single one of them I give an acknowledgement, and that's important that people feel that you're supporting them, and then in turn that makes you feel better.
So practice mindfulness, and this is what I was talking about previously about mindful eating. And what we mean by mindfulness, it's being able to stay focused in the moment. The reason that this is important as well as helpful is that when we're in the present moment, then we're not focused about the things we didn't get done or the things we wish we'd have done differently, and we're not focused about the things that are yet to come. So the only moment in our lives that we can do anything about is this moment. We cannot go back to change what happened last week, last month, last minute. We cannot change the things. We cannot have an impact on the things that were not there yet. So being in the moment is going to be what's going to be best for us. To create headspace, so what do we mean by headspace? It's a state of having a pliable mind, warmed up like a muscle with easy access to stored information and memories and open to new experiences. It's about living in the moment and experiencing it with confidence and lots of energy stored up, ready to use. So it's creating that space for us to say, this is what I want from my life, and these are the steps I'm going to take, and I'm going to accept what I'm doing in the moment because that's the best place for me to make the change. And then, you know, these qualities, of course, are going to be important and essential to an effective ICAC leader. It increases your focus by being mindful, because again, you can only focus on one thing at a time, so your brain's not bouncing all around. It's what am I doing in this moment? And you might have experienced this in the past where you sit down to do a task, whether it's something at home or at work, and then you look up and you realize 45 minutes have gone by because you're totally in the zone. You're in that moment of complete focus. Well, we would like you to be able to have that kind of focus whenever you'd like. So what do you do to that? To increase that, you practice mindfulness, staying on target. You just want to make sure that when you notice your brain is going 100 miles an hour or it's drifting off to 100 different things, bring it back to the topic that you want to focus on. And it keeps you in the moment. So again, there's no point in worrying about what happened before because we can't do anything about it. We can make corrections so that things go differently in the future, but then the future's not here yet, so there's no point in worrying about the future. We can plan for the future, but there's no point in worrying about it. So staying in the moment will help you be more effective ICAC leader. People sometimes believe that multitasking is effective, but in actuality, there's a greater chance for mistakes and potential for poor quality if we're trying to multitask. So when you think that you're trying to maybe talk on the phone and do an email and do a presentation all at once, well, you really can't do that. So I know there was a friend of mine the other day that was telling me that she is a boss, a supervisor, and she'd sent out an email, but she didn't want to worry her employees. So she said, don't worry, you're not fired. But she was in such a hurry sending out the email that she wrote, don't worry, you're fired. And this went out to several of her employees. So obviously, now she had much more work on her hands because she had to relieve the anxiety of all of the employees that she just told were fired, when in actuality, she wanted to get them together to tell them what a great job they were doing. So multitasking is not really the way we want to go. So one thing at a time, and you could be more efficient and more effective.
Which leads us to our next slide. Be kind to yourself, and hopefully she was, because recognizing you are only human, and we have all done that, right? It's we've sent out that email or that text message, and then we go back and read it when you get a response like, oh, I shouldn't use that word. I should have said yes instead of no, or whatever it might be. But recognizing you're only human, and we make human mistakes. Showing yourself compassion, okay? And it is so easy to knock ourselves in the dirt because we make a mistake. And not showing ourselves compassion, but we do that for others, and we need to start with ourselves, because if you show yourself compassion, it's very easy to show compassion to others when they make that mistake. I find myself doing that. You know, I've made mistakes, and as a leader, and I multitask a lot, like Carol said, sometimes it's hard. Just to give you an example, I have 3 computers open right now, and every screen's on something different. And that's just the way my brain works. But again, it may expose myself to making a mistake because, again, we're only human, and it's going to happen. And I may say yes to one computer and mean no to the other one. So recognize that and then show yourself compassion. And when you make that mistake, understand that it's okay. That being said, respecting your body and what it's saying, okay? It's easy for us to push ourselves through and put in more than 8 hours a day, put in our 14 hours a day. And I was thinking about that the other day, that working remotely, I feel like I'm working more than I was prior to the pandemic, because before you used to drive into work and then you spend your 7 hours, 8 hours in the office, and you drive home, and then I had my ritual, everything got put away, and I'd start my night with my family. And now it's very convenient because my office is in my room, so I can just jump behind that computer and work on one more thing. But what is my body saying? And I started experiencing lately, I started getting those headaches, and I felt fatigue, and I go, what is going on? And I go, I'm doing everything that I practice, and I go, was I really doing what I preach, right, to my team? Was I really taking that time away? And I realized that I was actually putting in double the days, because I go, oh, I have some downtime. I can get caught up on that project. It's important we listen to our body and break away from that, and not just always doing work. You know, it's really easy for us to do that now for those of us who are working remotely. And I imagine as things progress going into the flu season, more of us will be working remotely. And you're going to find yourself, well, I can just get this little bit done here at home because I'm already home anyway, and I have nothing else to do. But no, listen to your body. What is it saying? What do you need to do? And then being kind to yourself. Now, one of the things that we like to do is celebrate successes. And excuse me, that's a big thing. Simple milestones, right, from our ICAC teams. It could be the arrest. And again, and this doesn't just have to be ICAC. This could be any type of crime that you investigate. But with our ICAC teams and human trafficking, I mean, we celebrate our successes with the arrest. We have the wall of shame. You know, you walk into our area and you have an entire wall of the individuals that we put away in prison for hurting a child. And that makes us feel good. And that's one of our successes, and that's how we celebrate that. But think about the other successes that you can celebrate with your team. A birthday, maybe someone is having a new baby, the new baby in a new addition to their family. My second, we have all commanders have a second commander, if you're not part of the ICAC. And my second, last year, his wife, she got pregnant, and about a month before he was taking paternity leave so he could support his wife and be there for her, we had a baby shower for him at work, and everybody brought diapers in and everything they're going to need to get him by for the first couple of months. And again, that was celebrating a success, or celebrating an event among the team. So recognize those and recognize what's going on within the team, and in turn, celebrate them as often as possible, doing things, even something as simple as we had an eating contest one day. The entire team went out during lunchtime and went to this restaurant where they're known to create, everyone has one in every town. They have a restaurant that creates the biggest burrito or the biggest steak or the biggest something, and if you finish it all, you get it for free. And it was a contest that they had. It's a couple of guys, and everyone went to watch this to see if they could finish it. Of course, they didn't, but it's something fun to do. And that's a way of celebrating successes together as a team and breaking away from the everyday come to work and dealing with all the stresses that we have to deal with. Establishing some type of happy environment where you can take that with you.
And Anthony, I think one of the things that's so crucial now is to make sure that we keep connected like that, because we're not seeing each other face to face like we were in the past. And so being able to celebrate things, just to get together and celebrate. I know there's lots of people that are getting together, their coworkers, since they can't see each other and talk over the proverbial water cooler. They're getting together and doing Zoom nights, and they're playing games, because even though people oftentimes say they can't stand their coworkers, they miss them when they don't see them. So being able to reach out and say, how are you doing, or what's new? Or I know with our ICAC, we were connecting with each other once a week when COVID started, and you could just tell people were excited to do that. So celebrating that, people would take their cameras and say, oh, this is the new wall I'm building, or this is what my swimming pool looks like, or this is, and we were, all of us together were celebrating the little things that people were doing on their off hours just to increase what their yards looked like. So it was a lot of fun, and it really builds that team feeling and the team commitment, and encourages everyone to look out for each other.
We have an amazing team on the ICAC human trafficking side. We have Carol, who's amazing, and she brings everyone together and doing those meetings that she was doing. They actually look forward to it, and she's right. It's funny because there are a couple of people on my team that I could tell there's a little bit of friction between them, and with those meetings Carol was doing, really just to get together and talk, and then I had them go out and do an assignment together. They're close friends now, so it really does help. I saw something one of the other teams is doing. They're actually doing they set up a Zoom, just as they call it, coffee break, and everybody gets together. And actually one of the other teams is actually doing a costume contest this Friday on Zoom. So it's a coffee, and of course it's virtual, but we get a chance to do that. Our state has restrictions now. We can have 5 or more together. So so people are being a little more creative on how they're doing things.
So another thing that we can do that can release our stress and be compassionate towards ourselves is to plan ahead. So what we mean by that is make sure that you don't leave a lot of loose ends hanging that are gonna just add stress to your life. So plan for the next day. I strongly encourage people, before you leave the office every day, or whether that means literally leaving the office or shutting your work computer down for the night when you're at home, make a list of all the things that you need to get done the next day. So then you, again, like I was talking when I was talking about sleep, then you've got the plans in place to make that transition in the next morning. So otherwise, what might happen is you might be thinking, what do I have to do tomorrow? Where am I gonna, where do I start? Or what are the things that I need to, who do I need to call? What emails do I need to send out? Well, before you go home, write those things down. Or before you quit for the day, write those things down. Because then you're going to start off your day by being prepared. Plan for difficult discussions. So if you're going to have a discussion with somebody that you aren't looking forward to, whether this is a coworker or supervisor, maybe you're having to talk to a family member, plan for that. You want to jot down some ideas of what you want to say. You want to kind of strategize how you want to touch the topic, because if it's difficult discussion, that's one of those places where we can kind of fumble and get confused and then lose track of where we're going and not express ourselves in the way we want. So by being able to write down some notes and plan for that difficult discussion, it could potentially go much better than you might think. And then plan for stressful situations. So I always encourage, again, I encourage our ICAC folks to do the most difficult work first thing in the day. Or if it's going to be a stressful situation, maybe they have to go to court, or maybe they have to go to do a warrant that might be highly volatile. Plan for that. So what is your immediate plan? Envision yourself walking through that motion and walking into that courtroom and sitting there and saying what you need to say, or going over that with another one of your coworkers. Practice on what you're going to say in front of somebody else so you can hear the words coming out of your mouth. What we know to be true is that even if you've been working with exploitation materials for a long period of time and it doesn't seem to be a problem, when you hear the words about the case coming out of your mouth like you would if you were having to present in court, that can be very distressing and very traumatic. So making sure that if it's going to be a stressful situation like going to court, that you have yourself prepared. The more you can prepare, the better it's going to be. If you are able to prepare, you're going to get that sense of control, and that sense of control is going to help carry you through when things are difficult. So, taking time to reflect is going to allow you to recognize patterns of behavior that are helping and hurting you at work. So what maybe you realize that every morning you come in and the first hour is just spent kind of making sure that everything is ordered, remembering what you have to do, trying to go through emails. Well, how can you plan that so that it's a little bit more smooth? Do you make a commitment that for the first hour you don't answer any phone calls and then all you do is check your emails? Do you make a commitment that you organize your day before you go home at night so the next day you can jump right in? What are the things that you're going to do for yourself that's going to help make things easier? Like we talked about, multitasking is not going to be beneficial. So if you notice that you're a multitasker, how can you change that so that you're being more efficient and more effective? And you want to be able to, when the difficult discussions come by, you want to be able to feel confident that you can say what you need to say without getting off track. So making sure, planning ahead, having that sense of control, all of those things are really going to help you to do a better job at your job. It's going to help you to be a better leader because you're going to be mentoring that to others. It's going to help you in relation to your own supervisors because you're going to be prepared and you're going to be proving to them that you can do your job without issue. So overall, it's just going to make you feel better. And it's as well as with your family. If you've got things that you're going to be doing with your family, plan ahead. If you're thinking you want to have dinner out with your family or you want to plan a special weekend outing with your family, do that ahead of time if possible because then things will fall in place. So if you think, oh yeah, let's go, if we're here in New Mexico and we're thinking, oh yeah, let's go to the amusement park on Saturday, and you decide to do that on Friday night and you don't realize that it's closed on because of COVID, then the next day you and your family can be disappointed. So the more planning ahead you can do, it honestly will allow you to have more time for spontaneous activities. So try to plan ahead so that your spontaneous activities can be more free and open.
Thanks, Carol. So when we reflect, and she hit on that, it's that taking time to reflect allows you to recognize patterns of behavior that are helping and hurting you at work. So thinking about that, what pattern of behavior do I have? And, I talked a little bit about home, and I've noticed the pattern of behavior that I'm starting to have. And again, changing that, it allows you to have that time to sort out any issues to increase the likelihood of success in the future by reflecting back. Again, working remotely, you find yourself, oh, you know what, I can just put another hour in or do some extra time here or do that. So reflecting back on, for example, yesterday for me, I did my 8-hour day and I thought about, okay, what went well yesterday? Okay, I was able to get everything done that that was on my to-do list and my accomplishments made all my meetings. It went well. Did I need to work past 5 o'clock or was I able to spend good quality family time Was I able to shut down right at 5 o'clock and move over, and how did that affect me, okay? And reflecting back on that and how it affects you and how it affects your interaction, it really worked for me because I was able to do that. I shut down, went downstairs, we got a new puppy, helped out with that. We had about 8 inches of snow in the backyard, so she got a chance to feel that. And but it really helped my day for today because it started with a fresh outlook where on other nights, I found myself working 8 hours, going to eat dinner, then coming back and doing another 4 or 5 hours, and then shutting down and thinking, how productive is that really? And so what didn't work? What does work for you? And then how can I improve? For me, that's what works. I will get as much as I can get done in that 8-hour period. What I can't get done, I'll write it down on a sticky. And fortunately, our computers now have the great little stick-it notes that are electronic, and I'll just put it in there, and I'll close the display, and I'll walk away, and we start fresh the next morning. So reflecting on what works best for you is important.
And Anthony, you're exactly right. I think for me, for the longest time, when I would make a mistake, I would just perseverate on that, and I would think about it and beat myself up over it and think, how could I be so whatever dumb, so careless, so whatever the case might be. And I was wasting a lot of time focusing on that and wasn't spending time on how can I do better next time so I don't do that again. So I think it's that idea of really of understanding that we are just human and we make mistakes, and then thinking about, okay, because I know that I'm human and I make mistakes, I can also learn what I can do to alleviate the same pressures and the same mistake next time. So what did I learn here? What was the positive outcome? How can I think about this in terms of at least something went well, or at least I learned something? Because if we look at an event and we can only look at it from a negative perspective, then it's hard for us to see maybe some things went well, or maybe 6 things went well today and 1 thing went wrong. And if I focus on the 1 thing that went wrong, I'm never going to be able to think about the 6 things that went well. So try to really think about what well, and then how you can make those changes to just improve, because we all have room for improvement, whether it's learning a new skill, whether it's learning how to communicate with people, whether it's just learning about our job. Whatever we can do to improve the quality of our life is going to improve our situations, and it's going to improve our abilities to get things done.
Exactly. Thank you, Carol. So when we think about considering your environment, and I know many of our environments have changed because of the pandemic, is your office space organized? Having that environment that feels clean and organized can make us more effective. Now, I say that, but then I know some people that they love controlled chaos. They love everything a mess, and that's the most effective for them. So what's best for your environment? If we can easily find what we need, for me, and I have to spend less time searching for it, then that helps me feel better in what I do. But thinking about your environment, and then having the equipment you need, equipment available to you. And then do you have a reboot space? Now, I want to talk about each one of these just briefly. So one of the things that I noticed, with the pandemic, one of the things that my team was saying immediately is like, we don't have office space. We work ICAC cases. We have to look at these images. So helping people set up their environment was difficult at the beginning. Talking about what would be the best office space for them in their home, working these types of cases, and have no exposure to the family, but still getting the job done. So having the right equipment. So I end up buying printers. I end up buying new laptops. I had someone ask me for a new chair, so we're looking into that still. But those simple things, screen covers so they can't actually see the screen if they walk to the side, and talk about your environment and how you set that up. Something that I did is at the beginning, I found myself working from my favorite chair in my room because it's the most comfortable chair in our house, and I love sitting in that. And then I found, wow, but complete opposite of what we tell you not to do. Don't work from your favorite chair, because I've taken my favorite relaxing spot into a workplace. So what I did one day is I actually created a workstation with a desk and all my monitors and everything in a corner of a room facing the door. So now I'm in a way where it's almost like being in my office. And the great thing is I'm next to a window too. So again, thinking about your environment, how you set that up, and consider that, because that does make a big difference in how effective you are.
So, and you want to pay attention to relationships. Like this picture says, it takes both sides to build a bridge. So we have to think about the relationships that we have in our life and think, am I doing things to support that relationship, or am I doing things to bring that relationship down? And if I am, then what do I need to shift? Now, we know that we can't take ownership of every concern that's in a relationship, because relationships are 50-50, but are you doing the best that you can in those relationships to make sure it's strong and that it's positive? And that starts with communication skills. How are you communicating to others? Oftentimes when I'm doing couples counseling, I work with a couple, and they'll say, well, we've been together a long time. They know what I mean. They know what I'm thinking. People will not ever know what we're thinking or what we're knowing unless we tell them. So we have to make sure we're expressing ourselves. Even if we've been with somebody for 30, 40 years, we still need to do that. We need to just do a check-in and say, I just wanted to let you know, or I wanted to make sure you understood. It's just a common courtesy, and if they do already know it, they'll say, yeah, I got it. Or they might say, oh, I really didn't know that. I didn't understand. Same thing with having healthy communication at work. In order to make sure things flow well, then it's important to have that communication. It's important to communicate to your team what your expectations are. It's important to communicate to your supervisors what's going on, because the more communication you have, the more likely things are going to go well, and the easier it's going to be for you if things go poorly, because everyone will already be on the same page. And again, do you nurture your relationships? And if so, what are you doing to nurture relationships? Do you have people who encourage you in your life? Are you encouraging other people? So what is your role, and what are other roles in your life? And if you have a conflict with somebody, do you resolve it? Or do you just try to stuff it away and hope it doesn't come back? Have you stopped trying to fix people? So if you're in a situation where you want to fix your employees because you know that they're struggling, or you want to go home and fix your family, who's fixing you? We always have to focus on ourselves first, and then recognize we cannot fix somebody else. They have to want to fix themselves, and we can support them in that. So have you said you're sorry to somebody? Then when you've hurt their feelings or you've done something to wrong them, who's going to be the bigger person to go out there and start the conversation? Because if not, it could be years and years and years, and you could lose wonderful time and opportunity with those people. So how are you going to resolve that conflict?
Some excellent points, Carol, because I think we have to find that have you forgiven that family member, that friend, that colleague that may have hurt you, because it's easy for us to hold on to that, but then it hurts, and it's hard for us to communicate. So think about that. You know, I think back as a leader that I had an employee that did something out of the ordinary, and it bothered me, and I dealt with it. I mean, but I've moved past that, and this person's become very, very productive in what they do, and I've seen the relationship now with this person has really grown, and I think actually they're one of my most productive people. So just thinking about that and how you move past that conflict in that relationship is important, and she made some really good, valid points with that.
So we like to say use the flight attendant approach, and what we mean by this is, when all of us can remember, although we probably haven't been on a plane in quite a while, but I'm sure that you can remember the flight attendant telling us, take care of yourself first, because if you're not taking care of yourself, then you won't be able to take care of anybody else. And that's the truth. There's a thing that we talk about in counseling, and it's the emotional bank account. And if you are giving and giving and giving to others, but you're not taking anything back for yourself, or you're not reaching out to get support from others, you're going to be overdrawn, and you're not going to be able to give anything. So take care of yourself first. That's actually a kind thing that you could do for other people, is to take care of yourself. When you're 100%, then you can give to others. If you're down to 20%, you're not feeling good for yourself or for others. So take care of yourself and do what you need to do. Take care of your family next, because you don't want them to be lacking and concern and having issues in your family because you're neglecting them. And next, take care of your team. Make sure that your team sees you as a role model in taking care of yourself and your family, so they can feel confident that you're going to take care of them as well. It's not a difficult process. It sometimes just takes a lot of focus and some reorganization in your brain, because oftentimes we think it's very selfish of me to take care of myself, when in actuality it's very kind for you and others to take care of yourself. And make sure you're taking some time for fun. Try to do something fun each day. Now, when I'm talking about these things and the time they're going to take, I'm not talking about something like going to the movies or the movie spree or something and sitting and watching movies for 4 hours. I'm talking about doing something fun like take the first 2 minutes of the day to do dance party before you start your day. So, in your living room before you walk out the door, turn on a great song and just do dance party for that one song. Start a new hobby. So again, I realize that particularly if you've got a full job and then you come home and you've got kids or a spouse that you need to give attention to, it might be harder. But then start a hobby with the family. So maybe your new hobby is going to be doing a YouTube video together on gardening or cooking or something. Start a hobby that everyone can be involved with, so that it can bring that pleasure and that joy to everyone at the house. And get outside your comfort zone. The reason we want to encourage you to do that is because just taking a new challenge on is going to make you take your brain out of the place it's in and put it somewhere else. So think about that. When you start something new, maybe you and your family are going to learn a new language. If you're going to do that during the time you're learning that language, there's no space left in your brain to worry about work or to worry about other things. Your brain is going to be 100% focusing on that new hobby, that new activity. So create a week calendar that includes time for you to relax and unwind. So realistically, if you have to put your time for yourself on a calendar, do it. Make sure that you're scheduling me time, just like you want to schedule date night with your partner. You want to schedule me time for just yourself. And then, knowing that taking time for yourself is a way to replenish, recharge, fill your emotional bank account. And it's also an opportunity for you to build new memories. So if you start a new hobby and you and your children decide that you're going to learn to cook a new meal, or you're going to learn to speak a new language, that's building memories for them as well as for you. And because of your increased positivity, your overall demeanor and performance will improve. So a leader who prioritizes downtime, relaxation, and self-care discovers an increase in overall well-being in multiple dimensions. So try in every area of your life to see how things are going and to improve, and you're going to notice that you're going to feel better.
Thank you. So some more self-improvement. Learn a new work or related skill. So what skill will help you move up the ladder? Do we want to get promoted? I mean, I've been thinking about that. What is my next move? Where's my next step? What's going to help me move up the ladder? One thing this pandemic has done is it's opened up an opportunity for me to maybe attend other webinars that I may not have that time to do, because I have a little more downtime in some days. Think about how you want to grow moving forward. What areas? And Carol made some really good points there with learning a new language. That's what I started doing. I started learning other new formats. I actually took right at the beginning of the pandemic, there were several universities. One, Harvard, actually was had free classes, and there were several universities around the country. And I was able to take a couple of classes that I would never, ever take or have time to take. So it was really fun, and I did that on my own time. I mean, it was after hours, and I spent some time with the family, and I got a chance to learn to do something fun and new that was completely something that I would not take. One was actually an art class, and I hadn't taken an art class since I was at the university. So it's been some time. And then, of course, gain knowledge to make your job easier. What's going to make your life and job a lot easier? And this is a great time to do that and making time for that.
So you want to leave out the should. When self-care becomes a should, it can lose its benefit. So if it becomes a chore, it's not something that you're going to get any benefit from, but it's something that you need to think about. Even though for me, it's like what I was talking about, ballet. It's something that even on the days when I'm tired and I'm exhausted mentally and physically, the idea of being able to go and just lose myself in an activity is going to rejuvenate me. And it might feel like you don't have time for taking care of yourself, but many of us have saved time now that we're not having to commute because we're working from home. So use that commute time for yourself time. Maybe you used to be involved in some outside activities that you can't be involved with right now because of COVID. Use that as your me time. And realistically, if you don't take that me time, everything is going to take even longer. So you might realize that taking that time, even if it's only carving out 10 or 15 minutes in the morning or 10 and 15 minutes in the evening as well, even taking that half-hour day, you can see huge improvements in your productivity and your efficiency and how you feel. And you're going to just be getting things done in a more quality way and in a more enjoyable way. So you don't want to think of should as your self-care. You want to think of thankfully I can. So should makes us feel pressure to get it done, and then it can also make us feel judged. So if you're hearing me today and you're saying, oh my gosh, she told me I should do this, I should do that, it's going to make you feel like you're being judged because you might not be doing that. What we're trying today is give you an opportunity to think about these things and then do what you can. We realize that the pressure is on for you to make sure that things that you're taking care of yourself and your family and your friends and your coworkers and your supervisees. We realize that pressure's on. And what we're trying to say is if you have the opportunity and can add a little bit of me time into your day for self-care, it's going to improve the quality of your life, which is just going to make you feel better in all arenas. So recognizing first and foremost that you deserve self-care. You need to prioritize yourself because you are a priority. And again, if you're not taking that time for yourself, who's going to do it? Take time each week, whether that means 10 minutes a day, whether that means a block of time, 2 hours on the weekend, whatever that might look like. And seek support from others so that you can get a commitment from your family. I need this time so I can be a better father, mother, parent, whatever the case might be. So let's all agree that I can have such and such a time, and you will have that as well. And then make self-care a habit, which means you have to do it on a regular basis. You have to do it consistently, and you need to make sure that you are doing it consistently and in a way that makes you feel good and it makes you feel like it's not a chore. So when you're doing it all the time, it's not going to be like, oh yeah, I've got to remember to. You look forward to it. It's like, oh yeah, it's Friday night, so that means I have that hour to myself at the end to just debrief with myself, whether that means playing some mindless game or playing a video or watching a movie, whatever that looks like, just doing that time to take care of yourself.
It's funny, Carol. I actually this last Sunday, we talked about this and we shared this with everyone. And this weekend I sat down to watch the Broncos play, which they're doing terrible, but we won't talk about that but I felt guilty for doing the first half. I'm like, well, wait a second, I could probably be working on something right now. And I'm like, no, this is my time. And I had to convince myself at that time, like, this is my time that I deserve because I've been working all week long, and I'm going to sit and watch some football. But I had to convince myself that, and it's important we get into that. We recognize that we need to take time to ourselves because it makes a healthy relationship with your family and with your friends, and it makes a healthy relationship with your employees or your colleagues. And it makes you more productive if you take that time to yourself. So remember that. And I know, and I was looking at some of the comments that when do we have time to do this, even if it means just an hour or 2 hours, whatever, just taking a little bit of time for yourself. If that's all it means in the current situation, it's important we do that, though. Take that time to yourself.
So wrapping up, so I think, Gabby, are there questions that people that people want to ask that we can answer?
Yes, and I also wanted to address the time concern that Tracy talked about a little bit earlier in the chat. I think you both made really good points. Sometimes we think that this will require lots of time to do, and the truth of the matter is that we can start small. We can start with small breaks during our day, maybe just 5 to 10 minutes away from the computer, and it kind of builds on itself, and it becomes a habit for you and a very nice habit. I, for example, made myself buy lots of potted plants, and they're all outside on my porch. And so this is a way for me to get up during the day, and I have to water them, I have to take care of them, otherwise they look miserable. So even though I don't extend that same courtesy to my own self, I decided to do it for something else outside on the porch. So it was a good way for me to start. But again, as you get into these habits and as you kind of recognize how much of a difference that makes to you, then you will start doing it more and more. And all of us work in fields that are highly expectant of us. We have so much work to do. We can always put in more hours and more work because we're trying to either save vulnerable populations or help with mental health problems. But the truth is that if we don't take time in our day to address our own needs, then we can't help others. So I would highly encourage you to find the time and to carve some time out for yourself, as much as you can do that. And I see, let's see, William just posted another one for us. For those of us that are have lost makers, I'm sorry, I'm just reading it out. Any advice for not making it a chore, basically?
Yeah, so make sure that it's something that you enjoy. I mean, if my free time, my downtime, my self-care time was scrubbing the tub, that would be something that I wouldn't want to do. But if it's going to be your self-care time, make it something that you look forward to. So if maybe my self-care time, like for myself, is my ballet. If I had to go out and do run 10 miles on my free time, that would be a chore. But so find something that you're really excited about, that you wanted to do, like we were talking about the USAs, and then try to have that as your self-care.
Yep. Another question that we received, and this was prior, so thank you so much for submitting questions to us when you were registering, is how to manage your own wellness with positivity when working with negative issues. And I think this ties really nicely into optimism, and we've been talking a lot about optimism with Carol. So Carol, could you address the question for us, please?
Sure, certainly. So yes, you're exactly right, Gabby, that does kind of lead to optimism. And what we're talking about is the way you perceive things. So do you perceive things in a way where you're not able to see the positive of the situation? And yes, working with negative issues, it's hard to think about the positive things, but for all of the negative things that are going on, if you're doing ICAC work, the positive things are the children that you're saving. The positive things are the cooperation that you're getting among your peers. The positive things are being able to take one more predator and put them in jail. So, it's switching your attitude and focusing on the positive of those things. It's going to make you more optimistic, because if we dwell on all of the horrible people out there that are doing these things and all of the children that are impacted negatively, that's where our brain is going to go, and it's going to be hard to pull ourselves out. Anthony, did you have any comments about that? Because you're actually doing the work on a regular basis.
I agree with you. I mean, just focusing on the positive things is important. And she's right. I mean, there are a lot of things that we do every day that we can focus on and go back and reflect on that. We do a lot of operations. I mean, we had a huge success a couple of weeks ago in an undercover operation, and everyone's excited about that and moving forward and thinking about that. So definitely.
Mm-hmm. Another question that we received prior talks about boundaries and how to set appropriate boundaries for your own mental health and still be available to your staff when they need you.
So Anthony, I know you hit a little bit on boundaries. Do you want to follow up with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that's important. And sometimes I'm not a good example of that because I find myself answering my phone, I answer my phone 24/7. And I always set boundaries. So if it's after 5 o'clock, I'm not going to call my folks no matter what. In fact, I got into this habit now that I will type up the email so I don't forget it. That way it doesn't bother me all night. But I love Gmail because you can set up Gmail where you can set a time you want the Gmail to go out. You have that email go out. And that has taken so much stress off of me so I don't cross those boundaries by contacting my people to say, hey, by the way, did you get this done? Or don't forget this tip or do this. Now I'll set it up where I say, okay, I want you to go into their email box at 8 o'clock that morning. So I've done that, and I think that's transferred over to my team now. So now they wait till 8 o'clock in the morning, and I always can tell because right at 8 o'clock in the morning, I start getting lots of phone calls and emails. Prior to that, when I would call like after hours or I'd call sooner outside their work schedule to ask them a question, that wasn't a problem with them, but I was taking advantage of some of their time. So that was a way for me to set those boundaries.
Perfect. Absolutely. Okay, I think we answered most of the questions that we received prior to the training. If anyone has any more questions for us and does not feel comfortable posting them in the chat, just email us. Our contact information is just about to hit the screen. There it is.
There you go.
Whoops.
Oh, we lost it. There it is. There it is.
And once again, thank you so much for everyone for joining us. Anthony and Carol, that was absolutely amazing, and I feel as inspired as I always feel after my time with you guys. We will have another part in the series, part 4, coming up November 4th. So if you're interested for that, William will show you the link to register, and have a great rest of your afternoon. Take care, William.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, thank you for everyone joining. Just a couple of last-minute items before we wrap up for today. So if you'd like to get in contact with us here at OJJDP's INTAC, please feel free to do so through the link that you see on your screen here. You can also feel free to text at 22828 to sign up for our listserv to receive information that we have. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook at OJJDP TTA. If you'd like to reach out to OJJDP TTA Help Desk or receive information about the JuveJust or any upcoming events, you may do so by contacting the OJJDP TTA Help Desk that you can see through the information here. Feel free to click any of these links to access the OJJDP website or sign up for the JuveJust or even view upcoming events that we have in the future. And I'll talk about a couple of those in a little bit. If you have a training or technical assistance need, please be sure to submit your TTA request via the OJJDP's TTA 360 platform. Click on the link there and you can submit your request in order to get your training and technical assistance need. Don't forget that we do have our webinars archived on our YouTube page. If you'd like to receive any of those supporting materials, you may do so through by contacting the OJJDP TTA Help Desk, and we can get those supporting materials over to you. And yes, please be sure to sign up for our upcoming web events, including the part 4, the last part of our Effective Leadership series, hosted by our colleagues here with the Innocent Justice Foundation. Click on the register now to register for that webinar. Registration is open and live. Feel free to click on the learn more to learn a little bit more about that particular webinar, but please keep in mind that this is the last part. Part 4 coming up next week is the last part in our webinar series here. I'm sure Carol and Anthony would appreciate if you all attend that one as well. Also, we have our webinars coming up with our colleagues with Zero Abuse. You can register for those. We have a few webinars that are coming up with our colleagues with Zero Abuse, including these that are here on your screen. Please note that the one that's set on the 19th is only for MDT, law enforcement, and prosecutors. And finally, I want to close us out with a poll question here. and I would like folks to know, or would like to know, how do you plan to apply the information from this webinar to your work? Please note that you do have several options here that you can choose from, so please feel free to select multiple options to let us know how you plan to apply your work, this information that you learned today to your work. Again, I want to thank our presenters. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Carol. Thank you very much, Gabby, for a wonderful presentation. And we look forward to having another great presentation next week, our final part in the webinar series. Looking forward to it. Y'all take care. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The host has left the meeting, so at this time, the meeting will come to an end. Thank you and goodbye.